AG Brnovich, we'll get to that in a second. Very important long-term issue, but in the short term, we've got this terrible situation at the border about to get worse. Your thoughts in terms of your position there as a border state?
Thank you, Steve, for having me on. And quite frankly, a dangerous tidal wave is about to crash on the American shores. And it's not something that's created by some bogus climate change theory. This is truly a man-made disaster created by the Biden administration. And Americans are paying the price, not only in lost lives as a result of this fentanyl and methamphetamine epidemic hitting our country, but also through lives and treasure. And I was just at the Supreme Court arguing the case just 2 months ago about the Biden administration wanting to give government benefits to people who aren't citizens. So the Biden administration is decriminalizing and incentivizing people coming here. And Title 42 is one of the last tools we have in our toolbox, stopping a bigger, even further invasion of this country. And now they want to rescind that, which will have devastating consequences, not just to the Southwest, but to the entire country.
So as a bridge, perhaps, to our next topic in terms of how states can, stand up for themselves. I mean, what can you do in Arizona about this? As you know, you've got this feckless administration that's actually encouraging this disaster. What could you do to resist?
Well, Steve, you know I've been involved in numerous lawsuits. We've sued the Biden administration over the failure to build the wall, over the permanent guidance policy where he's not deporting people with deportation orders. We are suing them over his attempt to rescind Title 42. So we have been using those tools. Furthermore, I was the first Attorney General in the history of the United States to issue an opinion that says what's going on at our southern border with the gangs and the cartels and him ceding control of the southern border to them, that constitutes an invasion. And therefore, it's up to the governors, people like what Governor Abbott is doing, to frankly do something to stop this crisis, this catastrophe. But I remind folks all the time that the federal government is at its apex of power when it comes to national security and border security. States like Arizona and Texas shouldn't be having to pay the price fiscally and in lives lost for the failed policies of Biden.
Well, that's exactly right, because there are some things. That's why the Constitution is so brilliant. You know, there is clearly things that make sense to be handled on a federal level, a national level, but everything else that doesn't, it's very clear. The 10th Amendment was very clear. It should be handled at the state level, but we've seen this incredible centralization of policy, so much domestic policy now. If you listen to the conversation, the political conversation coming out of Washington, the Democrats, especially with Build Back Better, it's like they're sort of nationalizing policy across the country. That's just completely against the spirit and the letter of the Constitution, isn't it?
Absolutely. And Steve, I will tell you that my parents lived through World War II. They lived through communism. And the one thing that makes this country so great is the rule of law and the Constitution. The framers understood that as government gets bigger and does more and more things, it becomes oppressive. So the framers wanted the states to be a check on the federal government, and the states are the ones that created the federal government. So whether it's the 9th Amendment, the 10th Amendment, the 14th Amendment, these were all designed to limit the size and scope of the federal government and to maximize freedom. And so when we see what's happening right now, this concentration of power, this kind of neo-Marxist attempt to socialize our economy and nationalize our election, it's completely contrary to the Constitution. And eventually what will happen is the Biden administration is trying to get more and more people dependent on the federal government. And it's one of the reasons why I filed the very first lawsuit against the COVID mandates, arguing that it violated the 9th and 10th Amendment, because issues of public health and safety, issues of education, that was meant to be left to the states and local governments, not the federal government.
And just very, very quickly, I mean, what is the progress of these legal campaigns against this encroachment by the federal government? How's it looking?
Well, we were successful in, 3 of the 4 lawsuits regarding the vaccine mandate. We have a lawsuit right now over the COVID funds, and the Biden administration doesn't want states to have the ability to cut taxes because they want to give out stimulus checks, but they don't want the states to be able to control finances because that's that attempt to concentrate power. And so when you see things like a federal Department of Education that's spending, most of its money is discretionary. There's $160 million in that budget for civil rights. We've got lawsuits. We've got litigation because that is about controlling our kids. And so I'm doing everything I can in the courtroom to push back against not only the Biden administration, but any federal government that's attempting to impose or nationalize things that are supposed to be left to the states.
That's right.
I am a classic federalist, and it's important because the process matters.
Exactly right. Well, thank goodness you're fighting back. This is an American issue. It's not a partisan issue. Doesn't matter who it is in the federal government. They shouldn't be getting into all these areas that should be reserved for the states. Great to see you tonight. We really appreciate it. Thank you.